windows at the gas station. Yeah. So that we couldn't even hear it again on tape. I don't think we could figure it out. Yeah, I had Jane get his name and his contact information. So the guy from the zoning board.
Okay. Ready, Kendall? Yes. Let's call the meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Broderick?
Here.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mr. Crompton?
Here.
Ms. Fiding? Here. Mr. Kella?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Orlando?
Here.
Mr. Rusinellis?
Here.
Mr. Strong?
Here.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the only item that we have on the agenda for today's meeting is ZO-2-17, and that's zoning ordinance amendment to Article 7, Section 47-17.21, 3H, and that would be the scope of regulations, adding prohibition of window outline lighting. Under general information, the Plan Commission briefly discussed the proposed zoning ordinance amendment to prohibit window outline lighting at its meeting held on July 20th. Several questions were raised regarding why the city would not allow someone to light their windows at their business, and whether or not this would grandfather in existing lighting or only future lighting. The commission requested more time to discuss the proposed amendment and more information, along with pictures of this type of lighting in windows. Based on this direction, city staff has compiled photographs showing examples of this type of lighting. I believe pictures were attached in your packets, and for your viewing pleasure or displeasure, we have a rolling presentation on your screens. The city's legal department has drafted the attached ordinance for consideration. At the City Council Land Use and Legislative Committee meeting held on May 16th, there was discussion about the need to regulate window trim lighting in the commercial and industrial districts, and the committee received a preview of the proposed zoning ordinance amendment. At its June 6th meeting, the committee voted to recommend approval of the amendment as currently proposed. Minutes of that meeting are available. There was no discussion concerning this particular item at the July 6th Community Design Review Board meeting. And that concludes the staff report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I'm assuming you are going to act as the petitioner for this item?
I will represent the petition.
Oh, very good. Do we have any comments or questions from the audience? Do we have any comments or questions from the commission?
I'm at this little schoolhouse with Russ Kling.
The way the ordinance is written today in its current form, it's different from the one we reviewed and presented at last month's meeting, specifically that there will be no removal. Is it no removal of the lighting, Kendall? Or is it just that the amount of flashing and blinking is going to be managed? I'm referring to section 2.
Section 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the way this is written, it is calling attention to illumination. And it says such illumination shall not be flashing nor intermittent. However, the individual time or temperature may not be flashing at any time. This restriction shall include any form of lighting around the full or partial perimeter of window openings, whether internal or external, with a visible source of light, whether static or flashing, such as neon, fluorescent, LED, or similar lighting source. This prohibition shall not apply to decorative holiday lighting between the dates of October 15th and January 15th. So that would be a full restriction of this type of lighting.
So are we saying through this ordinance that we will remove all existing window border lighting?
Well, that's I think one of the questions before this commission.
Yes, sir.
Whether or not that would be something that would be going forward. the way our understanding from the Land Use Committee was that this will be a prohibition of this type of lighting into the future, and nothing would be grandfathered in. So anything existing would have to be removed as well.
Okay, so just to make that practical, so any of the border lighting that we're seeing currently with these pictures, the ordinance would direct these owners to remove that lighting?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted clarification. Thank you, Mr. Director. That's the only questions I had.
So Kendall, so you're saying that, if someone has some exterior lighting here that's not, let's just say the Boost Mobile. So it's got some exterior lighting and then it's got window perimeter lighting. If they get a permit, installed that lighting at their business and everything's okay, now we're saying that they would have to pay and have that removed.
That's a very good question. And for clarification, the lighting that is the subject of this amendment is not permitted. In other words, there's no permit that you could come in and receive from the city for that type of lighting.
Okay.
So that lighting was installed without any permits, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
How long has this ordinance been in effect? I mean, the people have this stuff going on, so have they been told to take it out, or?
No, that's the subject of our conversation today, whether or not the amendment as proposed, which restricts this type of lighting, would go forward with a recommendation to have these removed and prohibited in the future. So currently they exist without any regulation.
Because before this, there was no rules against it.
Correct.
Or for it.
Has there been any complaints from any residents around the areas that these flashing lights are maybe restricting their sleep, like they're lighting up their bedroom at night, that they can't sleep or anything?
Yeah, I haven't personally heard any complaints like that.
I haven't either.
I have been at various neighborhood meetings when other types of things are discussed, and these lights have come up just as general discussion.
In regards to what, though? Why did they come up?
In regards to the residents that were complaining, just didn't like them.
But most of the residents don't live in the business area anyway. So it can't really harm them, because most businesses are on the thoroughfare. There's not too many houses on the thoroughfare, like Larkin Avenue, Jefferson Street.
There are some areas of town where you do have encroachment of commercial into neighborhoods. And there are some instances where you may have, something like this directly across the street or within view of someone's home. That's the minority, but we do have, cases like that.
Okay, now, another thing too is, you said there can't be no flashing lights. Well, there are flashing lights, like I run past Mickey's BP station on Plainfield Road and the P&S station on Jefferson and Wheeler, and they have flashing things that buy your lottery tickets and all kind of different ads. Nobody seems to complain about that. So I haven't heard no complaints about these lights from anyone. You got Walgreens has their flashing thing. Nobody complains about that.
Director Jackson, I just have another question, a little bit a different scope. In terms of communication and then enforceability, from a strategy perspective, do we, assuming that the ordinance or an ordinance is passed in general, do you send out communication written format to the business owners and then follow up with a phone call, or how does that work?
Very good question. So in terms of enforcement, the best that we could do would be a media release. If something like this is approved, informing the business community that we now have a regulation that prohibits this type of lighting and that the city would proceed with enforcement. There are individual businesses that we can identify, as you can see in this presentation. But in terms of direct mail notices, we won't have the ability to do something like that.
Just to be fair to these ladies and gentlemen, that some type of fair period of time for them to be aware of and then comply with.
Yes, yeah, so the media release would, again, if this is something that gets approved, would contain a grace period.
Okay. All right, thank you, Dory.
Kendall, there's been nothing, where anybody's brought anything up about any safety factors where it's caused problems with, traffic or nothing like that, is there?
I haven't heard direct complaints about that. However, when you have flashing bright lights, they can be a traffic issue.
But there's no statistics where somebody brought it up and says, because of this has happened, like I had an accident because of it?
No.
Okay.
Another thing too, why do we have to, if the committee's so against the flashing lights, then we shouldn't have the flashing lights between October 15th and January 15th either.
Well,
I mean, if you're gonna have elimination of flashing lights, you have it 365 days a year, not just a certain time. Because then you're gonna say, well, this period of time here reflects to this, the Christmas time, then somebody's gonna want it at Easter time, somebody's gonna want it at 4th of July, and then you're gonna be running into more problems. So you either have it all to get, everybody can have it, or nobody has it.
yeah, we didn't want to prohibit anyone from putting up holiday lighting. And holiday lighting could be construed as what we see here in the presentation. So to get past that, where we wouldn't have staff trying to tell someone, oh, that's window outline lighting, when in fact it may be just someone's Christmas decorations. We didn't want to get staff in that position. So we opened this up over a holiday period.
But even Kendall, I think that would be perimeter lighting. This still prohibits flashing lighting of any kind. So even holiday lighting still shouldn't be able to flash, as I read this. Where illumination of signs is permitted, such illumination shall not be flashing nor intermittent. And then we talk about, so we're starting off saying there won't be any flashing lights of any kind, and then we say there won't be any perimeter window lighting except for holiday lighting at this time. So I would read that to say that it should never be flashing anyway, but.
Yeah, there should be no exceptions. Now, here's the thing too, Kendall. How about at Christmas time, these people, they can put these LED lights up and they have them flash at during Christmas time then you can't do nothing about it, right?
Correct.
It would be legal just at that time.
That is correct.
They could put all the window treatments they want.
That is correct.
Okay, now how about somebody comes in and they say, well, I want to do it at Easter time, or I want to do it 4th of July, or Labor Day.
That would not be allowed under this ordinance.
Well, then you got good for one group and not good for another group. Then you start getting into a little hassle there. You know, I seriously, I think this is good for the business community because they're trying to generate revenue, like I said last month. They're trying to generate more retail business. And the only way to draw retail business, because the economic climate right now is very competitive. And they're probably doing everything they can to get the customer into their store. If we keep putting out more restrictions on people and small businesses, eventually everybody's going to want to leave, or they won't come into Joliet. You might end up with 2 businesses in town. That would be Goober's Filling Station and Floyd's Barbershop. You might have an Herb Mayberry here, where nobody wants to come into Joliet.
Sure, but also I can also see the other side too, where no one wants it flashing like the downtown strip of Las Vegas either. So I can understand why the city's looking at this and is trying to come up with an ordinance. So. Was there any other comments or questions from the commission?
I have one. If this passes and goes through and somebody doesn't adhere to it, what are the fines?
Good question. We haven't really addressed that.
Any other comments or questions?
It goes up from there. Okay, so it would be a $75 fine to start, and then it progresses if there's no compliance.
Any other comments or questions?
No.
Hearing none, then a motion's in order for ZO-2-17.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Call the roll?
Excuse me, how are we gonna vote on this? A is to keep it and A is to remove it?
Motion was to approve, correct?
Motion to approve.
That's been seconded, so an aye motion would be to approve, a nay motion would be to deny.
Okay. I to approve this here.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Broderick,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
No.
Mr. Crompton,
Aye.
Ms. Fiding,
Nay.
Mr. Kella,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Nay.
Mr. Orlando,
Nay.
Mr. Roosevelt,
Nay.
Mr. Strong.
Aye.
Motion is denied. Okay. This motion is denied, and it will go to the mayor and city council with the recommendation for denial.
Thank you. Minutes?
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjournment?
We did have one item under old new business, not for final action recommendation. We had talked about the tours of our logistics areas at our last meeting. And we do have two commissioners who are, I believe, ready to take their tour. Tim and Bridget, I believe. Okay. So we'll have Karen reach out to schedule something. So you can expect probably a 2-hour tour. And then as other commissioners find time on their calendars, just let us know. We'd like to do 2 at a time.
Excuse me. I can't know. Are there any certain dates, like certain days of the week that you're gonna set up for the tours? Or is it like Monday through Friday or just Tuesday, Wednesday, or?
I think probably the best thing to do is for the commissioners to pair up and then let Karen know when you're available.
Okay,
And then we'll be coordinated on our side. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Monday through Friday, weekdays. If you want to do something in the evening hours, 4:30, 5 o'clock, that's fine as well.
Okay. Gotcha.
Very good.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.